All right, back for another video in our series on writing in AI, and really looking forward again to diving into that writing process. Let's get down into the steps along the way and thinking about how AI can strategically be leveraged at certain points in time when it makes sense with the standards. So go back and watch that video on kind of the why and making sure we're good on the action verbs and what you're trying to get out of that particular moment in time. But when it comes down to things like, well, editing, there's an opportunity here with artificial intelligence to have that support the work that students are doing as it pertains to some of their academic writing. And so I'm really grateful to Theresa Ritta-Olson of ESU 10 for joining us for a conversation on that very topic. And so, Theresa, maybe as we get started here in kind of exploring this, I think of things like I have Grammarly baked in. It comes up on almost any website that shows up. And as I'm typing into that, it's already using some version of AI to help make suggestions and feedback. And so I can't see why there would be a whole lot of pushback when it comes to thinking about maybe even some form of this support on student work.
Well, and I think if teachers are looking for an easy place to start, I feel like editing and that the proofreading phase of writing is a great way in, because we can monitor it a little bit better, especially with some of the tools that are out there. But I also think it's just a way to teach kids, because I don't know, when I was teaching, it would be really easy for them to hand in their first draft and say, I'm done. And I said, well, you need to read it again. And they'd be like, nah, it's good. Or have a peer read it. And they're like, oh, it sounds great. And you still catch all the errors. And so teaching kids that writing isn't just done, that we can keep improving it, keep changing it, keep clarifying it. So I think that editing is a place that we can really go, is a real good go-to for teachers.
Yeah, and I would imagine as we explore this further, we're going to, as all these videos do in this set of 4 within the larger context, there's going to be some overlap between this and some of the feedback pieces. And I love what you shared there as far as when students go to a peer, for example, to get some of that feedback, maybe this is an opportunity for AI to step into some of those spaces. But I think the first thing we have to consider, though, is that ethical use piece, right? And so share a little bit about what that means by that topic, I guess, if we're thinking about ethical use during the editing phase.
Well, I think just as with any tool, we want to teach kids how to use them appropriately. So I think of plagiarism. English teachers do this all the time. We teach kids about plagiarism, that it's okay. We want you to incorporate other people's ideas. We want you to incorporate other people's words, but we cite them. We give them credit for it. And so the same thing goes with when we're using AI for editing purposes. We don't want to just say, hey, write me an essay, or here's my essay, clean it up, and then copy and paste it. We want to make sure that kids are keeping their voice as part of it, because writing, as other videos have that you've put in this series have talked about, that their voice is what matters. That voice is that creativity. The voice is our communication. The editing should just be about making sure that we're able to communicate our ideas clearly so other people can understand.
Yeah, so I love that, because maybe part of it is catching the places where I've not been as clear as I would like to have been, or being able to be a little more concise in spots where I wasn't, which sometimes those two can work in complement to one another as you're writing. And the chatbots can take away from your voice in doing that, which is where you need to come through as the person who's writing and make sure that it doesn't lose that. And students inevitably are going to need to be taught the very things that we're pointing out here. And so it's one thing to say them in a video. It's another thing to kind of bring that into practice and have those conversations and support. So it's got to start at some place. So where would you begin, I guess, Theresa, in thinking about what it looks like to have AI as a learning partner?
Well, I think it starts with like we do everything with teaching. We model. We show a piece of our writing. I do this often, and I think if teachers are scared about where do I start with yourself. Start with an email that you're writing to a parent. Put it into AI. Let it clean up and say, did it keep this? Did it keep my voice? Did it keep some of the same idioms or cultural terms that we use? Because I've noticed that especially Grammarly, I've used Grammarly a few times and it tries to fix things. I'm like, no, don't fix that. That doesn't make any sense. And so just trying it out there to help kind of catch what kind of tone can AI help our students develop and help us develop too. I think as adults, we can use it for editing purposes just as well. when we're working with students, we could take a piece of writing. We could even write it together. I worked with students that struggled with writing, so we did a lot of collaborative writing. Take a piece of writing that we put together, then put it into a chat bot of some sort, and then you have that chat bot give us feedback, and then we evaluate it. Like, do we like what it says? Did it make it more clear? Then it becomes a critical thinking process too. Is it still saying what we want it to say? What did it catch in our writing that we, made a mistake on? Looking for those errors.
And this is something that has come out time and time again, not only in the videos, but also in the development of the resources, trying to point out that at least at this present moment, students under the age of 18 are not allowed to be on some of the more, I'll just say, souped up, prominent LLM chatbots.
Mhm.
And so what do you do to try to create these types of learning opportunities when students aren't technically allowed to be on those in the school setting? And so there's kind of two ways to approach this. Is one, as Theresa said, you could certainly model on the board use of these tools. Students then obviously would be leaning into that potentially outside of the school day, which makes some assumptions about what technologies they have available to them, and you get into accessibility issues. But it's good to like say these things, right? These videos and these resources are here so that you can take these conversations to your district, to your team, and wrestle with the nuance that is here. And so it's just worth saying that stuff out loud, even though it doesn't sound like an answer, probably. But I think modeling it is important in the way that you said, and then providing a safe space to practice, which might end up being in a different tool. Some of the students might leverage their own LLMs to do whatever they're going to do outside of school. But a place like School AI would be one that you could turn to design a space that would give feedback specifically in an editing type of capacity. Or there's also this writing feedback feature, which beforehand, Theresa and I were talking, loosely familiar with this. So check out the tools on your own time, and certainly make sure they align with what your district has in its policy in terms of supporting the use of those tools. But those would create student-friendly spaces within which to practice some of the things that you were highlighting there a moment ago, and that's worth bringing up, right? So what other suggestions would you offer then, Theresa, that we should be thinking about as students are and teachers, really, because you have to learn yourself first the capabilities of this tech to then be able to turn around and model it too. So that's also worth bringing up.
Well, and I think one of the things, and the reason why I went to a session on AI and writing a few months back, and one of the big takeaways that I had from that session was about the students providing transparency about their use of AI. So we know, like, if they're using like a chat GPT or another one, you can actually get a link to it where they create a public link, and then they can share that with you. And so that you can see what did they do exactly on AI. I did this with my son the other day. He was struggling a little bit, so I let him use my chat GPT, so I could monitor it. And everything I saw him doing, he was asking, like, what's a good sentence starter if I'm trying to say this? And so then it gave him 10 sentence starters. So it was just a fantastic place for him he was stuck, and this was a way for him to get kind of unstuck. Another thing that I've seen done is actually having students self-assess their use of tools. So any kind of tool. So like maybe it was Google, or it could be AI, or it could be some other tool, but they self-assess, like, how much did I use technology in my writing? And so then it becomes, again, about that transparency piece, like, and teaching kids a high level skill. Are they going to lie sometimes? Yes. We cannot stop that. They are human, and most of them are teenagers. So we know it's going to happen. But the point is that the ones that aren't going to lie are the ones that aren't using it at all. And so are we leaving them without the tools to be successful past our classroom? And so that's always my fear with this, is that we have this great ability to make things equitable for our kids in an ethical way. So how do we help give them the tools so that they can move, so that when they leave us, they still have access to those things?
Yes, I love all of that. That is a big reason why I want to advocate for this technology, is because of the things that you're mentioning there. I was fortunate enough as a kiddo to be able to bring my riding home, and my mom would give me feedback, and to the point where I would be so annoyed with her. We'd go through this like back and forth. And it's funny, I did not plan on sharing this, but there came a point in time where I did say to her, you were just injecting your own voice into my
Mhm.
writing. And from that point on, she didn't need to give me feedback
Mhm.
anymore. I sort of like led, you can certainly always benefit from another voice in it. But I think that that is fostered through that interplay. In this
Mhm.
case, as we're talking about, it could certainly be done with AI as a learning partner,
Mhm.
and what that would mean for students who don't have someone at home to be able to engage in that back and forth with. And so it's really good to think about this. Another thing you brought up that's worth mentioning that's part of this resource is citing AI. And so you want to make sure that you not only build in that sort of in-text citation, the works cited page that this is referenced, but as Theresa said there as well, making sure you explain how you use this and in what ways. That fosters that self-reflection piece that you just mentioned. And so all really great stuff here, Theresa. Is there anything in what limited time we have left that you would sort of add to that, or just through our conversation today also gets you kind of thinking that, hey, you know, as teachers look to step into this space, one I'll say kind of comes to mind too, that with most of the policies, it says you need to tell students when they can use technology like this ahead of actually giving the assignment. So if you're watching this video and you're like, gosh, I should have introduced this before the essay we've been spending the last 3 weeks on, you're right. You should probably wait to the next
Mhm.
essay to get into those conversations beyond modeling it. But what does this make you think?
I think it is and I kind of reiterate that this is about helping kids understand that the writing continues, that we can keep making our voices heard, and that it's that opportunity to evaluate somebody using the AI and evaluating what the AI does, and still keeping our voice and our agency as part of our writing. That writing is about us communicating our ideas. Is your idea coming across? If it's not, what can you change, because you can still adjust. So I just think we want to empower kids to be able to put their best foot forward with their writing. I think of I worked a lot of my career with English learners, and these kind of tools would have been game changers for a lot of my students, because they would have had more tools to help build their writing in English. Even if they're translating to English, it would have still helped them increase their writing ability.
Absolutely, because we're not really moving the needle forward if the process is so stagnant and frustrating. You know, there has to be a little bit of a rhythm to that as well,
Mhm.
and so I'm sure that's part of it also. But Theresa, thanks for being a thought partner with this. I really appreciate your time on this important topic, and just want to encourage everyone to check out, if you're viewing this on YouTube. You can check out the other videos in our series here. But if you haven't accessed our Writing in and AI document, I would encourage you to do so, as we're going to continue to try to keep that updated, but try to provide easy to access and onboard resources that are timely and will just allow you, as we said earlier, to be able to have these conversations with people in your school and decide where you as a team and department and district want to go. So thanks for your time, and check out the other videos in the series because we got some good ones.